The third episode of Ahsoka, Time to Fly, came out last night, so let's talk about it. But first, I want to remind everyone that this series we'll be enjoying for the next few weeks wouldn't exist without the hard work of the writers and actors behind it, all of whom are on strike right now fighting for fair pay from the AMPTP, and streaming series are a big part of that fight. But getting into the episode, my first impression was that it was okay. There are moments within it I thought were great, and I'll talk about them in detail, but I still feel like we're doing a lot of recapping. It's stuff I'm familiar with from Star Wars Rebels and some books and other surrounding material. There was a lot of cool action that I enjoyed. I love the discussions on the Force, but I feel like the overall plot could be moving faster for my taste. Of course, I know most Star Wars fans haven't seen Rebels or read the books, and this is all probably necessary context not only for this series, but maybe the larger plot of the New Republic era of Star Wars. So I understand the choices, but I also feel like I'm looking at my watch waiting to get to that new far-off galaxy. Diving into some specifics, we open up with a training session now that Sabine is fully Ahsoka's Padawan once more. First with Huyang, and I like that we get to see some new functionality from him. From the Clone Wars, we knew him as an expert in lightsaber construction, but it's cool that he can also help teach saber combat. It makes sense, he may have been an all-purpose sort of Jedi droid way back when he was first built. But I like the session between Master and Apprentice more. Ahsoka puts a face guard on Sabine so she can't see and starts annoying her with jabs, hoping her Padawan will sense her intentions. It's interesting that Sabine does seem to get there at one point, realizing where Ahsoka is and even swatting at her saber, but by then she's too worked up and easily knocked over. Ahsoka says anger and frustration are quick to give power, but they also unbalance you, which seems like it could have been written by George Lucas himself. Hopping over to the New Republic fleet, Hera meets with Mon Mothma and several senators to discuss the events of the past two episodes. I was curious to see how Mothma would translate into Ahsoka, to see if she felt consistent with the very intense tone and portrayal of Andor, and yeah, it seems like it's all working to me. Dealing with all these politics and potentially shady senators, I think we might get to explore more of that spy thriller intrigue in the future. Basically, these senators, primarily Hamato Siono, want to avoid another war, but they're doing so by just pretending it's an impossibility. Hera rightfully says they won't have a choice if Thrawn returns, but everyone else wants to go on pretending that he's dead like they assumed. And then Siono twists the knife and suggests Ezra is dead as well. Just like Sabine gave into her anger and frustration with Ahsoka, Hera lets loose and snaps at Siono, which may have been the moment her mission to seek Thrawn and Ezra was denied. Just outside the room, she gets a little bit of solace with her son, Jason, who we fans finally get to see again for the first time since Star Wars Rebels ended. Hera kept popping up in stories like Alphabet Squadron, and Jason was referenced but never seen. It's good to see the kid, and bittersweet to hear him say he wants to be a Jedi, which his father Kanan was. And by the way, would it be so hard to mention him? Maybe they will, but having Sabine train with wooden sabers and then train blind, it seems like that would have been the perfect time to talk about the person that taught her to wield the Darksaber. Back on Ahsoka's ship, she and Sabine share what's probably my favorite scene of the episode, because it's Dave Filoni very clearly laying out his beliefs on the Force, which he learned from George Lucas. The Force resides within everyone. Anyone can learn to wield it. Sure, talent is a factor. Some lucky people are born purely by the will of the Force, and they're incredibly gifted, but training and focus and discipline are what truly defines someone's success. Like I said last week, I was worried when we found out Sabine would be Ahsoka's Padawan in this series because I was afraid that was all gonna happen off-screen, but to explore it in this way, to spell it out for people who may have put a little too much stock in Force lineages, I am happy about it. And a small note, the cut back to the cup Sabine tried to move with the Force after she said, "You win this round," was a funny gag. In the next scene, I love Ahsoka's pushback against Huyang. He reiterates Sabine's lack of talent and the fact that she would not have been accepted into the Jedi Order. I still think he believes in her, or else he wouldn't have encouraged her to stop wasting her time in Episode 2, and he does admit that Ahsoka comes from a long line of non-traditional Jedi. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Dooku, yeah, except for Obi-Wan, I would say that's a pretty non-traditional bunch. I do wonder what it is specifically that made Ahsoka want to train Sabine. I can't recall them sharing during scenes in Star Wars Rebels at all, so I wouldn't mind learning more about their history at some point. Unfortunately, that'll have to wait, because Ahsoka and company arrive at the Denab system to be immediately attacked by Shin and Marok's starfighter squadrons. They struggle in their counterattack for a second, and then Ahsoka asks Sabine what it is she needs from her. I really like that. Yes, they are master and apprentice, but they're also a team. It's not just about Sabine doing what Ahsoka says, it's a two-way street. It's one of the reasons the Jedi had Padawans in the first place, because one of the greatest ways to keep learning about yourself is to teach someone else. I think we're seeing Ahsoka be more receptive to that idea in this moment, and it doesn't work right away. Their first attempt at working together fails, but they encourage one another, and the second time around, they start taking down their enemies. Also, on a more technical level, the dogfighting looked and sounded great. I liked the World War II style fighters, and the sound design for their lasers was very cool. On the opposite side of the fight, Morgan chides Shin for failing to destroy the Jedi shuttle. She opens fire with the Eye of Sion's turbo lasers and damages the shuttle, but also fails to destroy them. And then Shin takes her turn to be a little snarky. The baddies aren't cooperating, which is usual in Star Wars. The first two episodes gave me the sense that Baylan and his apprentice are only working with Morgan for as long as it benefits them, and the third episode kept me on that same line of thinking. While Sabine fixes the ship, Ahsoka goes out onto the wing in a spacesuit in a scene that felt like it was straight out of the Clone Wars. A Jedi jumping around in space, taking out ships with their lightsabers. Yeah, that's pretty sick, and also just insane. And the ships are so focused on the bright, shiny swords, they neglected to shoot the ship. It's silly, but I thought it was good fun, and Ahsoka running down the wing to get back inside was so cool. The chase continues into the atmosphere of Cetos, and there we run into several Purrgil, which on its own feels like a cool Star Wars creature feature, and we see the Jedi using the natural world to help make their escape, which is great, but of course, fans of Star Wars Rebels know the Purrgil's importance, which Sabine points out later. The Purrgil were responsible for the disappearance of Thrawn and Dezra, so this is a good sign they're on the right path. But for now, their ship is stranded on Cetos, hidden within the forest. Baylan sends his troops to find them, and that's how the episode ends. To reiterate, I enjoyed this episode but didn't love it. I wish more had happened with the characters I'm not familiar with, specifically the bad guys. Baylan and Morgan were barely in it, Shin and Marok at least got to fly around and shoot, and that was fun, but those are the characters I really want to learn more about because I don't feel like I learned anything new about our heroes this time around. It was cool to hear Marok speak though. I'm just anxious to keep the story moving along. I was kinda hoping we'd be heading towards the new galaxy in episode 4, but now we're almost halfway through the series, and I know we have at least one more episode on Cetos. I will, of course, reserve my judgment until the end of the season, but I'm already thinking the story of the first 3 episodes could have been faster paced. But still, I'm having a good time. Huyang is great fun, I like the villains, and I will always enjoy Dave Filoni's takes on the Force, and hearing Kevin Kiner's music every week is a treat. But that's all I've got to say for now. We'll be doing our live stream after show at noon today, which is earlier than normal, but DragonCon is just around the corner, so our schedule is tight. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page for video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode as they're released. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.